Fantasy fans, Final Fantasy fans, are we good or bad? Are we dope or shit? What's good, my fellow peasants? How you doing? So I found it quite interesting with how many newcomers we have in the series. I've been speaking to like today and even the rest of the week. The polarizing view that this community can give them. You know, some are like, oh, you know, I've just joined and I'm loving how enthusiastic and cool and down to earth everyone is. And then on the flip side, it's, oh, I'm really loving these gamers, Pez, but the community's a bunch of douches, aren't they? So I wanted to do, from my personal opinion, 5 of the best and worst aspects that I perceive from Final Fantasy fans. Of course, it's just my opinion, but I've been around community for quite some time. Years. I mean, Facebook groups, Twitter, Discord groups, even just running this channel, even fanfiction.net communities. I mean, so many. And while, of course, none of these points will be absolute, there won't be all-encompassing, and there will definitely be outliers. This is, in general, what I perceive as the 5 best or worst. So let's jump straight into it. Now, just so this doesn't seem too kiss-arsey in one section and too overly negative in another, I'm actually going to go 1 for 1 on good and bad, and I'm going to start with good. And my number 1 for that is a drive to share their passion. The willingness, the expressiveness, and the eagerness for fans to share why they love things, whether that's a character or a story or a theme song, is real. And I feel it's actually one of the core pillars of what Final Fantasy fans connect around. And what I specifically love about sharing the passion is, and I feel like this is because of Final Fantasy, that because the themes are so RPG based, they're so story based, they're so emotional based, that so much of what people love about FF and what they share also has a synergy. Like the line between just a virtual gaming hobby and their personal lives, I feel like the line is very blurred. And whether that's a way a game affected someone during their childhood or during this tough phase they were going through, or when they got married, or when they're having kids, or so many games came to people in so many personal times in their life that often when fans do share why they're passionate, there is that real, genuine, raw and beautiful insight into the person's own life. And I feel like fans are really good at expressing that, and they're really clear at how games did affect them in a way, rather than just like an overly analytical assessment of what's good about that game. There is really that personal energy, like the essence of the person behind it. So I'll go with that for number 1. And number 1 for the bad, I'm gonna go eternally comparing. Oh my goodness, Jesus! I get it, I understand, and it's like a drive to share people's passion. But so often that comes in the form of, what is the best? What is the best FF game? No, what is your favourite? And I know why people ask that, but the flip side is you best believe that every time it's done, there is always that part of the thread that devolves into the cycle of comparison of, no, this is the best FF, or if someone says, oh, FF9 is my favourite, there'll always be that person who says 9 is shite, and your opinion is shite, and you're shite, and like you're just objectively blind. That's sometimes the narrative that people go with, rather than respecting it as a subjective medium. Now, of course, I won't say most of the FF fans go in that heavy-footed when someone expresses what they like, but what I will say they will do is then they'll get trapped in the cycle of what that douchebag just started. Someone opens the floodgate by wailing in heavy-footedly on another person's opinion, and then everyone will fire in hard again, and all of a sudden everyone's falling into these tribalistic type camps where if this person agrees with the FF I like, we best mates, and if they don't, we gonna go ham on them. And I actually did a video on why this is. It's part of the human nature. I did a video on it. Like, scientists took a load of subjects and they made them pick music that they loved the most, and then they had scientists who were pretending to be music critics from the industry either agree or disagree with the person's pick. And what they found when they hooked their brains up to scanners was also validated, like backed up, given credence to. They actually had this huge release of endorphins and serotonin, so it actually gives a person a satisfaction and like a happy hormone rush. And I feel like that's why people start these kind of threads, to get that. But of course, when someone's disagreed with, the total opposite effect kicks in and it can turn into a poop fest real quick. So eternally comparing, that's number one. Back to the good, I'm going to say, oh, my ball's just dropped, emotionally connected. I really think this is the case. And of course, I think this is the nature of Final Fantasy again. You know, it is emotional based. It does have relationships. It has deep themes. It has lessons. It goes into the nature of the soul. Traits like wisdom and courage and empathy. And that anyone who resonates with these kind of games, I feel like they have an integrated capacity to feel those emotions. We can feel, and what I also feel like that translates into in a really wonderful way is also the ability to then find the underlying beauty in things, in messages. And, you know, even if parts of a game are satisfying or underwhelming or underdeveloped, so often I see with fans, and even that if that's just through headcanons or taking from others aspects and perspectives that they didn't see, that they can now enjoy. Fans, I find, have that emotional connectedness and willingness to make that emotional connection with the games. And I feel like that can so often manifest in such a more profound and beautiful way where it can actually transcend what the game itself is putting out. It can become so much more. I can definitely sometimes see when some fans have slipped away from this, because when most of us started, we were so young. And this is going to lead me into my next point. Because we were so young back then and so much closer to our natural states that we loved and enjoyed and resonated with games in such a more innocent and pure way. And I can see some fans who as they got older and they've got more cynical and jaded and the growing pains of life hasn't really served them, that sometimes you can tell the fans who've become overly analytical. They've just become disconnected from the way that they used to be able to connect with games. I can see that manifest in some people, and that's why I'm going to go to number 3, which is that we're old. We're freaking old. We're old and haggard, and our best days have left us behind. I feel like, of course, there are fans coming to the series now between the 12 and 15 era, but by and large, I mean, even the analytics on my YouTube channel pin most of us between 24 to 31-ish. In general, don't feel old if you're older than that. Even though you are, well, I mean, we're all old. We're all too old to be gaming. Goddamn, when we go and grow up. I also might add that as a nice one. We are kind of big kids at heart still. But I feel like as we've got older, we are still, however, nostalgia driven. We still have those rose tinted goggles. And I feel like this is a bad point because it also makes us resistant to change. And how are we so resistant to change? This is what truly baffles me. Final Fantasy has been changing its formulas for such a long time. The differences have been wild and dramatic. It's become such a norm for Square Enix to change things radically, that how is it that when anything does change, and it doesn't matter what title it was, there's always such a wave of resistance to it? No, I mean, this isn't to say that there aren't core elements that are integral to making a Final Fantasy what it is, and I do still think there are some, and I do think that transcends just the gimmicky identifications of summons and crystals and chocobos. I do feel like there is a plot pacing, there is a way that it handles the unfolding and the growth of both its characters and its plot, the way it leads up, the way it integrates its villains and its themes. I do think there is a core element there, and I certainly understand what some fans express when it's not being held up to what feels like a Final Fantasy or should be a Final Fantasy. But too often I find the person is overly critical simply because they're not getting the same feeling they had when they were a kid. That they're still, rather than trying to experience something new and fresh, because Square Enix have to change up the formula, realistically they do. Some fans just want to basically feel how they felt when they played the games back then, and when they don't get that feeling, rather than try to form a new bond, and as the person they are now, they just overly harken back to an old time. It's just because they're an old bitch. So that's number 2. I'm now going to go to number 3, which is naturally speculative. I'd say that we are theory crafters, we're tinfoil hatters. We engage with stories in an active creation, an active imaginative way. Because it doesn't matter what game came out, whatever trailer it was. I mean, even let's go to 15. Any snippets of a trailers, fans will then throw themselves into a glorious flurry of imagining what's going to happen, imagining what that means, where that's going to go. And of course, while that can then create headcanons, which then the disappointment of when it doesn't live up to what you've created can be a negative effect. By and large, I feel that process is such a beautiful insight into the naturally creative energy that we all have as human beings. We all have a creative side, and I feel like FF fans really do engage it. I mean, even with the remake, before we even knew that Square Enix were going to be making loads of changes, while some were just like, oh, it's going to be a 1-for-1, what's there to speculate about? So many fans were immediately going into, oh my god, they're doing a remake, and they immediately went into a reimagining phase of, oh, they could do this and they could do that, they could change this here. So even with something that on the surface didn't seem to have any reason as to why it would be different, so many fans did go there, and Square Enix are now doing it. So yes, naturally speculative. It's great, I love it. That's actually what my channel was built around, so that's why it's dear to me. But going to number 3 of bad, more money than sense. Come on, let's admit it, we do. Final Fantasy fans are so guilty of just throwing their money into a void. Just take my money, Square, take my money. And I feel like that's what's cultivated the climate of Square being all the more willing to take it. Like, we are the worst for like doing pre-orders when we probably shouldn't. We'll buy DLCs regardless of whether we know we should or shouldn't. I mean, it's kind of understandable. We've been paying for overpriced merchandise for the best part of decades now. And I mean, I ain't gonna say 15 A New Empire, some of these other mobile titles which are so cash grabby and microtrans stuffed is necessarily just Final Fantasy fans. I feel like, especially with 15 A New Empire, there is definitely a culture of people who are into empire building games that use sharkish, algorithmically calculated formulas that are designed just to attract whales. But I definitely still think a lot of those are Final Fantasy fans, and considering that was getting 1 million a day at one point, what are you doing, guys? More money than sense. More money than sense. And I feel like Square Enix know it, considering like the 30th anniversary, they turned it into a crap fest of just trying to sell us stuff. Shove it down our throat. I mean, even these glasses were like 500 quid. Are you kidding me? I mean, even just going to recently, this watch, which is 2.5 grand. Square Enix know that they can take some people for a ride. I mean, this thing don't even play the victory theme when it chimes at 7. It's 2.5 grand for that. Oh my god. I feel like we're partially to blame for opening this floodgate, but also partly Square. Which then brings me to number 4, which I also think Square Enix is partly or largely to blame for, which is the bad of we are impatient. Oh, we are impatient. Now, I know we have a lot of right to be impatient. I mean, how many years we are left between titles, and not just that, the way that Square Enix can release a trailer, hype us up, and then just leave us high and dry. Just years of endless void with not a whiff of new information. Of course, there's a lot of reason to be impatient, but what I feel fans do worse, and why they're impatient, is some fans know how to temper that. Alright, because the thing is, Square Enix have been doing it for so long. They've been doing it for years now. It's the norm. If you haven't come to expect it, well, woe fall upon you. Because I even remember, like, with the remake, when Nomura would pull out a little nugget of information, like a little gnat of, and just flick it at us, like a non-story. And then I'd have so many people say, bruh, why are you not covering it? Nomura's just given us a wee nugget of information. And I didn't cover them, because I'd got to the stage of, I need to temper back my excitement, my engagement with it. I need to pull it back, because it's the healthiest thing for me to do at this point. If I re-engage with it, if I get re-excited, then all it's going to lead to is disappointment, anger, resentment. And the fans that can't do this and work on their impatience for when they get excited for something, you know, even though Square Enix is doing some BS, those are the ones who they end up ruining their own experience. Like, what started as crazy excitement, they've now turned into bitter resentment. And they're as resentful as they were excited. And it just gets to a point where they actually, by the time the game comes out, they've actually destroyed their own capacity to enjoy the game now. So I'll say that for number three, I think. Yeah, and now number 4, I'm going to say compassionate. Final Fantasy fans are compassionate. Now, this might just be the Final Fantasy Peasant community, or the way you guys have interacted with me on this channel, things you guys have done for me, but also just what I've seen amongst fans. And again, why is this specifically Final Fantasy? I don't know, maybe it is because that's really the takeaway of these stories. You know, we see all of these characters from such different backgrounds and diverse personalities, complete opposites in some case. We see them coming together and forming these bonds and relationships, and I feel like anyone who can naturally resonate and gravitate towards these, or I've been playing them since a young age, it definitely instilled that in me. And I've seen it play out so much over the years that I really wish you guys could see it. If you have a cynical, crappy view of the fan base, because I've seen it when some fans have fallen into bouts of depression, or they're really struggling with elements of life, and I've actually seen some other fans fly out to go meet them, to actually fly out, meet the person, give them a helping hand, be that patient voice, that listening voice, and giving them advice. I've seen people give each other advice when they're having kids, when they're becoming new parents, that they've followed each other's lives. And even just like, I know it's stupid, but I even have like a little internal guild system on my stream. Like sometimes people willing to like give some of their currency over to other players and help them out with their businesses and share business ideas, buy each other's art. Like, there really is a bedrock of compassion in there, and I think that is a really glorious element that Final Fantasy community can have. That again, it's more than just like a virtual game hobby that's being shared. It does go into that sort of deeper personal side. But going back to bad, I'm gonna say we are illogical. I don't know did I do 2 good ones? My timing's all off on this. But I'm going to say illogical as a bad one. Oh my god, the number of brain hemorrhages I have had at the logic that some fans somehow muddle themselves with. Oh my god, I mean, there's just so many to mention here that, so many fans can't actually sit down and properly interpret or assess why they feel about things they do. And often when I see, and not to say that there's nothing in the Final Fantasy games that you can complain about, but things like open world, for example. Oh, open world was always so good back in the day, even though it was never open world, it was overworld. They just talk about the freedom to roam. But now they're waffling on about open worlds, and they're waffling about Witcher 3s and how FFs were like Witcher 3s and shit. I'm just like, you what, mate? Or things about characters and stories, like complaints that they have, and some of them are able to really interpret and give a fully fleshed criticism and review as to why they don't like it, and that can stimulate discussion and counterpoints. But some of them, when you ask them why they didn't like something, and through much difficulty once you drill down to it, the number of times it comes down to the smallest, dumbest BS. Like, it was just because of that guy's hat, or that thing there, or that one specific, or that didn't have any meaning there. And then you say to them, wait, actually, I feel like you just misanchored the story, bro, because that happened in that chapter. Because Final Fantasy's, the way that it's played, certain parts of the game, early or late, give huge credence and importance and weight to another part. Like, it's not all just presented in a cut and dry way, that sometimes it does take a mind that can go, oh my god, so because that happened there, that happened back there, and some people completely miss that. And then even when you express it, they're just like, nah, shit, I don't like it. So yeah, illogical as hell sometimes. And then I'm going to go to number 5, which is that we are the hype masters. Oh yes, we are. We are the lords of hype. Hype Festers 5000. All aboard the hype train. Although I'm going to say, of course, this can, some people get their bar so raised that then it doesn't get met with the hype and the headcanons that created, or the anticipation. But I think by and large, because I do think that this series is still so strong, like the bar of quality is still so high. Even when certain things have been rubbish and derpy, I feel like they only seem rubbish and derpy because of the standard FF has set. from like the old, golden era of games. It's like 9, 9.5. Where if an FF game comes out that's like an 8, 8.5, that seems underwhelming. The Final Fantasy bar is that high, and I feel like Spirits Within is a great example. People are like, oh, in its own right, would not be a bad movie. I still think it probably might be, but as a Final Fantasy movie, no. Crap. That's just one example, but I feel like because that standard is so high that's why FF fans, because there's so many games and we know what they can be at times, and that they're more than just like a game. Like when a new one's coming, it's like a new phase of life, it's like a new era, it's gonna become a new way of being. It's more than just a game, it's like a journey that has so much anticipation because of what the series is, that when we do get like new trailers, new games announced, the hype is off the charts, and in the lead up to it the hype is crazy, and when the game is out, I mean the FF7 remake, all you got to do is look at that to see the reactions that came out around that, the crowds, like it broke the hype meter, and I just love that, and I think it's a great thing because it has so much energy and passion and just whew, it's electrifying, baby. So there we go, those are my 5 of the best and worst, and I really want to know what you guys think. I mean, what would you add to this list? And I'm gonna say, go ham down there, but whatever happens, keep it civil. I mean, I don't want to be adding to number 6 on bad that we can't have a civil discussion. I want to add that to the good that we can. What do you think is the best and worst? And I also, because I'm really curious, let me in the comment section below, how long have you been around this community? Because like there's so many new ones, but then even like really old ones like the 1 to 5 or 6 eras. I think a lot of us like the 7 to 10ish, but even some of you newcomers, how long have you been around this community? And what has been your overall take? Is it overly positive or negative of this community as a whole? But either way, I want to express a heartfelt amount of gratitude. Like, you guys have been the friends and the companions and the company and the people I can speak to when I've been hermiting out and I've not had anyone else. So I honestly want to throw out some mad love sparkles. Jesus Christ, Bez. You're alright, you're alright. You're basically, you're a bunch of alright people. And I like that. So thank you very much. Until the next video. Kumo! Hola! So this is one of those outro video thingamajiggies that I've seen some YouTubers use. Can be quite effective. Sell it, let's go sell it. To people who otherwise wouldn't want to subscribe. But do it. I'll buzz in your pocket. It'll be endearing. You'll be like, oh, it's that little Final Fantasy chappy. Oh, I don't mind him. And there are some other videos about. I don't know which ones I've put there. I also want to say thank you to my delicious, beautiful patrons below for all their support. And do us a favour, share it with a mate or a community, or maybe like it. I don't know how the YouTube algorithm works. Just make me big.